Major industrial estates of Thailand have been hit by the flood since it began several months ago. And then we have a chart, well, not showing the damages that has been inflicted upon the industrial estates, but rather the investment sum of the 6 major industrial estates of Thailand. At first, we have the Bang Hwa high-tech industrial estate. There has been about 43 factories right there. It's not big compared to the others. The estate investment sum that would total about 9,472 million. The major investor of this is Japan. Well, as for all of the investors, Kunatagon, all of them were Japan-based investment, and that would Japan alone would sum at a total of investment of 7,462 million. That's the first line right there. And the number of labor working in the estate is total up to 90,000. That would go to, as well as for Ratananakorn, that's the second one, and Bang Pa-in. These would be of a larger scale with a 143 for Ratananakorn, with the factories that are there, and 90 for Bang Pa-in. The estate would have the total investment sum of roughly 60 to 65 billion. That's in baht. Japan as well. The investment sum would be similar, 23 to 32 billion. That would be a total of 110,000 number of laborers over there.
Okay, now let's move on to Rojana Industrial Estate here. The number of factories in Rojana are 198 factories, and the estate investment sums at 56 billion baht, as well as the investment sum 39 billion, and number of labor equal to Bang Hwa is at 90,000. However, Nawanakon Industrial Estate is the largest industrial estate by far, 227 factories there, and the investment is at 180 billion baht. And Bangkadi also at 44 factories and estate investment sum at 25 billion. However, Nawanakon employs about 128,000 employees of labor, while Bangkadi employs 30,000.
So far, we still don't have the latest damage report, but that would show slightly of how big the damage by the floods are going to affect a lot of lives and a lot of machinery.
Yeah,
that's
and
been
in total, the number of labor that's affected would probably be around 450,000.
That's a big number. Definitely. Well, okay, moving on, the Flood Relief Operations Center, or FROC, is set to investigate the hoarding accusation against it after a video clip circulated among internet users raised suspicion that FROC has hoarded donated items intended for the flood victims. The video clip showed many donated items left unattended at Don Mueang Airport's Cargo Building 1. This included huge quantity of water bottles, clothing, and other equipment such as boats and mobile toilets provided by the Japanese government. Don Mueang Airport, normally used for domestic flights, is already inundated. FROC has relocated last week its center in Don Mueang to the energy complex of the Energy Ministry to escape flooding. Internet users expressed doubts whether FROC officials were hoarding the donated items. Others blamed the agency for delaying the delivery of those relief supplies to those in need. According to the FROC Director Pracha Promnok, the Prime Minister's Office Inspector General Jamren Yutitham Sakun, in charge of approving the distribution of donated goods to the flood victims, will be called by FROC to clarify suspicions over alleged hoarding of the donated items. Jamren said he was assigned to oversee the transport and distribution of donated relief items in the form of clothing, household utensils, and relief bags only. He said the Department of Disaster Prevention and Mitigation, and not himself, was responsible to supervise large items such as floating toilets, boats, and rafts donated by the private sector and charity organizations. He said the clothes shown in the video clip were waiting to be sent to Julajom Grau, Royal Military Academy for laundering. PM's Office Minister Grisana Siilak also said donated goods stored at Don Mueang Airport had been moved to the National Stadium. They are ready to be distributed to flood victims. The transfer of the new items was also confirmed by the Department of Disaster Prevention and Mitigation.
Well, Kunawan, I for one would question the credibility if they investigated themselves.
And especially the internet users are very powerful when they circulated these clips around. It would project a big voice of the communal.
Yeah, it's a new media. Information is quickest on Twitter nowadays. But speaking of credibility, it's in our next story here, as Hana Microelectronics PLC is among the thousands of Thai companies with factories swamped by record floods, calling on the government to help ensure it never happens again as water slowly recedes north of Bangkok. Thailand's credibility is on the line here, said Hana Chief Executive Richard Han, whose Bangkok-based company makes parts used in digital music players and mobile phones. A complete review of how to protect these industrial estates needs to be conducted, and it needs government support. More than 9 billion cubic meters of water released this month from dams filled to capacity has swept down a river basin the size of Florida, inundating several industrial parks that help transform Thailand from an agriculture-based economy to a manufacturing hub since the first one was built 4 decades ago. The worst floods since 1942 have shuttered 10,000 factories, put 660,000 jobs at risk, and caused damage of 140 billion baht, the government's figures show. Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra must now convince companies such as Honda Motor Co. and Canon Inc. that the floodplain remains a reliable production base. Gorn Chatikawanit, a former finance minister with the opposition Democrat Party, said one of Thailand's main challenges whether Thailand can develop into a high-income country is whether it can mitigate the economic impacts of natural disasters that could occur with greater intensity over the next several years. Slowing export growth and flood costs that Moody's Investors Service estimates at 200 billion baht, equivalent to 2% of GDP, may compel Thailand to cut interest rates. The disaster may wipe as much as 3 percentage points of GDP growth this year, according to Credit Agricole CIB strategist Francis Chung. Yingluck said October 29 that waters in Nakhon Sawan and Ayutthaya provinces have started to recede. The government will start pumping out water from the flooded industrial parks on November the 10th and expects plants to resume operations around the middle of December. Industry Minister Wanarat Chanukul said on October 28 after meeting with companies affected by floods.
The first shipment of 3 million imported eggs from Malaysia will arrive in Thailand today as egg supplies are running low during the flood crisis. The 3 million imported eggs will be available at the markets today after domestic egg supplies have seen a shortage. According to the Commerce Minister Kittiratna Ranong, the flood disaster has caused a reduction of hens, hence domestic egg supplies have fallen. The shortages are coupled with flood-induced panic buying and logistics problems caused by the floods. Eggs are reportedly sold by some retailers at 8 baht per piece. Jalern Pokapan's Food Executive Vice President Anek Bunnun said some raised concern whether the imported eggs might have epidemic diseases as the government has rushed to import without first checking the egg farms. However, it was necessary to import essential goods to meet overwhelming domestic demand. The imported goods were safe and passed quality checks.